We'll call the meeting to order. That was a little bit close, wasn't it? I want to thank everybody for being here today for the City County Local meeting and the chairs of City County Local for allowing us to have the 911 Blue Ribbon Committee meeting here also with them and share this time. Thank you for the committees, and I'll turn it over to Senator Irvin for comment.
Good morning. Most of you I got to say hello to yesterday, but again, it is an honor and a pleasure to be able to come and have a committee meeting here during the convention. We really appreciate the work we do with the Arkansas Association of Counties. And just, on behalf of myself, but everybody, it's out of a love for our neighbors and a love of our community that I know that you serve in your positions, and that we're honored and blessed to be able to have that opportunity to serve you as elected officials. It's really important, that partnership that it develops and those friendships and relationships that develop. And that's how you get good policy, and that's how you really can solve the problems that we face. And this is a big issue. The 911 issue is a huge problem and issue that you all are dealing with and facing. And so it's those relationships and that willingness just to do the right thing for the people that we serve and our neighbors and our community that we move forward. So again, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Just want to say, the 911 is the first line of protection for our citizens, and we need to do everything we can. And we've made a lot of good strides with some different things that we're working on. We've got some ideas. The committee has some ideas. I've got some. They may be good or bad, but we just need to vet those ideas and see if they turn out to better help the counties with their financial issues with 911 and help our dispatchers with their issues too. So with that said, we'll go with Mr. Michael DeRose with the Benton County and Washington County Department of Emergency Communications.
Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing this morning? Welcome to beautiful Northwest Arkansas if you haven't been around before, and I'd just like to thank all the members of the committee for allowing me to speak today. I'm going to give you just a general overview of 911 in Benton County, and we'll reserve a little time at the end for any questions that you may have. So I know it'll be hard to see for those of you up in the front row there, but we do have a map behind you of Benton County. As you can see, we have a fairly large lake system in the easternmost portion of our county. That's Beaver Lake. A lot of opportunities for recreation. So, is that better? Okay. All right. So, our county covers approximately 880 square miles. We were founded in September of 1836. And as of 2013, we had a population of approximately 247,000 people. Obviously, we know that this area is growing by leaps and bounds, and I'm sure we've far surpassed that number today. We are home to a couple companies you may have heard of before. We have Walmart. Their home office is right up there in Bentonville, and then J.B. Hunt, their headquarters is located in Lowell. As far as the history of 911 in Benton County, there was an election in 1988 that resulted in the creation of a 911 administrative board and subsequently an administrative office. There was also a tariff that was placed on basic telephone service. There's a 5% tariff. That money goes to fund the operating costs of the system in Benton County. In 1989, we implemented a bi-county 911 system. We were joined with Washington County for almost the next 5 years. And in September of 1994, both offices split up and operated each system in their respective county. In 2001, we moved forward to Phase 1 capability. For those of you that may not be familiar with Phase 1, we can do a little question and answer session later. But in 2004, we moved up to Phase 2, which is where we currently are. We have better location capabilities now than ever before. And then moving forward, just this year in 2015, we deployed a next generation capable 911 system across Benton County. And we'll get more in depth with that in a later slide. Also in 2015, we implemented text to 911 capability, which we were the first in the state to implement that. And so far we have T-Mobile and AT&T set up for text to 911. We're still working on some of the other carriers. As far as funding, the 5% wireline tariff that I mentioned earlier, that's distributed to our 911 administrative office, and it is for procurement and operation of the countywide 911 system. And then the other side of that, the wireless tariff is distributed directly to the PSAPs for operational costs. And I know this is a little bit hard to see with my font colors, but in 2014, our wireline revenue was approximately $675,000, and our wireless revenue was $1.1 million. So as you can see, the landline money is going down, and the wireless money is going up. Everyone's going to cell phones. It's a growing trend. As far as our new next generation capable 911 system that we going on to this year, it's from Airbus Defense and Space Communications. It's their Vesta system, and it comes complete with the Orion Vela mapping component. Our system, which you'll see broken down in the next slide, is a geodiverse system with dual hosts, meaning that if one host goes down, the other one picks it up. There's no interruption from the dispatcher standpoint or from the caller standpoint. It's seamless. Most of the time, you'll never even know that it happened if something was to actually go down. Throughout the county, we have 25 individual dispatch positions. Those are broken up respectively into the 4 primary PSAPs and 1 secondary PSAP that we have in the county. And you'll see those numbers later. It is an IP-based solution, so after the call comes in on those copper camera trunks, moves over to the Airbus system, and it's all IP from there. It does come with the Aurora Analytics package, so we can do a lot of analytics and reporting on all of our calls and look at trends. Has real-time integrity monitoring. Since we've installed this system, whenever there's been any hiccup or any type of trouble, most of the time Airbus is calling us, letting us know that we have a problem, not the other way around. So the monitoring is the best I've seen as long as I've been doing this. Most of the stuff they can fix remotely. They rarely have to send a tech to whichever PSAP is having a problem. So I'm very pleased with the monitoring that we have. It really gives me peace of mind. And as I mentioned before, it is NENA I3 compliant, which means next gen capable. When Arkansas gets ready to make that leap and move into next generation 911, our system is set up and ready for it, whatever that ends up looking like. So I know this will be a little bit difficult to see, especially for those of you in the back, but this is our system in Benton County. This is the diagram. So you have in the top left, Benton County CENTCOM, that is host A. And then top right is Rogers Police Department, that is host B. So they're geodiverse. Like I said earlier, if one goes down, the other one picks up seamlessly. And then across the bottom, you have each of the other PSAPs, Bella Vista Police Department, Bentonville Police Department, and Siloam Springs Police Department. They each are connected to the system via multiple methods of networking. So this map represents each respective PSAP's area of responsibility. As you can see, the County CENTCOM in the teal or whichever color that appears like up there. We have a lot of area. We dispatch for quite a few small municipalities, and then Bentonville, Rogers, Bella Vista, and Siloam Springs, they all have their own area. Breaking each of the primary PSAPs down by the numbers, my dispatch center is a consolidated PSAP, meaning we dispatch for quite a few different municipalities, but they're Benton County employees. The staffing, we have a director, I have a deputy director, 6 frontline supervisors, and then 25 dispatchers to handle the call volume. Again, the graphics are going to be a little bit hard to see, but we had in the neighborhood of 40,000 wireless calls last year compared to less than 5,000 landline calls. So the numbers kind of speak for themselves. Wireless is the primary way people choose to get a hold of us as far as 911 is concerned. The Rogers Police Department, they're also a multidisciplinary dispatch center. They dispatch police, fire, and EMS for their respective areas. They have 22 staff members consisting of a manager, 3 frontline supervisors, and then 18 dispatchers. Their calls, I believe they were just short of 25,000 wireless calls last year. So a little bit less, but if we're, they're a city, they're a little bit more concentrated, whereas at the county we have wireless calls coming from all over the place. Bentonville is fairly similar, their staffing is similar, and their call volumes are slightly less than Rogers and CENTCOM. I think they were just above 14,000 wireless 911 calls. And all these numbers are at 2014 statistics. Siloam, a little bit smaller, they have 12 total staff members, 3 supervisors, 9 frontline dispatchers, and as you can see, their calls are below 10,000 wireless, and then just a little bit above 1,000 landline calls. As far as training goes for Benton County dispatchers, we send everyone to the Alita Basic Telecommunicator class in Camden. I think that's a very, very good program that we have going down there. We also send everyone through APCO Public Safety Telecommunicator 1, as well as EMD, Fire Service Communications. And Benton County is also a National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's partner, meaning we've been through the Missing Kids Readiness Project, and that consists of adopting their model policy, special training classes for our dispatchers so they can intake those calls in a very specific way. That way we can handle missing children calls to the best of our abilities. And we also send them through quite a few FEMA independent study courses. As you can see, we do 1, 2, 700, and a plethora of others. Does anyone have any questions so far?
The turnover that you have in your dispatchers at
Representative Nika Mack, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm hearing that there's a little bit of concern statewide with turnover. You get them trained, and then the salaries, they're pulled away to other positions. So could you address turnover and how maybe you have addressed that problem in your area?
I definitely would agree with you. Turnover is a problem statewide. In Benton County, we've addressed it the best way we can. Obviously, everybody likes to make a little bit more money, so each year we try to give everyone raises. We also, we try to show the dispatchers that they're appreciated. I mean, we do a lot of different things, team building exercises, things of that nature. And also through our interview process, we also try to weed out those that we think might, go to another position in a quick fashion. So as far as my recruiting, I really try to find those people that want to be dispatchers, that don't necessarily want to move on to patrol or the fire department or something like that. We want to recruit high-quality dispatchers and people that are passionate about that line of work, not use it as a stepping stone. So, and even with those initiatives, everyone's going to have turnover, so we try to do the best we can.
If I could have just one short follow-up.
Yeah.
What I'm reading is there's a high incident of burnout due to just the trauma that they have to visit every call, similar to PTSD. do you all have ways of addressing those issues to be proactive about that?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. After any high-profile incident, we do critical incident stress debriefings. We have several people that we can contact and get that done in short order, because the sooner you get that debriefing, the better hopefully the better that they will deal with it. So we have that for any high-profile incidents. As far as just general burnout, we try to give our staff, and I believe some of the other managers from the other PSAPs are here, so you can check with them later. But for ours, we try to give them various opportunities. We have a field communications team. They can apply to be on that and go out in the field. They can become trainers. They can become supervisors. So we try to give them room to grow and room to develop themselves, so they're not always just sitting behind a console talking on the phone or talking on the radio. So we find that helps a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Seeing none. We are going to have a tour leaving here directly after this meeting. Oh, at 1 o'clock. Well, the legislators and committee members will have a tour of the Springdale PSAP here just shortly. So we'll have transportation available for everybody. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks again for the opportunity to speak with you.
Okay, now we have Miss Camper Thompson. Oh, John Luther, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. John Luther, Director, Washington County Department of Emergency Management. Oh, okay. I have one more thing too. This is my first meeting, so bear with me if you haven't noticed. But we have the Honorable Andrea Lee here with us. Recognize her, and David Maxwell, also the Director of Admin. Thank you. And we have Mayor Firestone from Bologna. He's our new member also. Mr. Luther, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for having us here. I want to welcome you to Washington County. Rest assured, if you call 911, we have good people ready to take your call and take good care of you. I'll be brief. We don't have a PowerPoint. Obviously, you mentioned that there will be a tour for those that are immediately involved and that can go to Springdale. A little limited on space, but if you're able to go, we want to try to help facilitate a tour of an actual facility here in our county. So all I have here are some notes that we've got that we spoke with our PSAP managers to share some information with you. Our county is a very close mirror to Benton County. We have roughly 220,000 people, a little over 900 square miles. The information that we have from AT&T says that last year we took about 175,000 calls related to 911. We have 93 full-time dispatchers in our centers. We have five centers in our county. We also have 4 part-time employees. We take calls at the Sheriff's Office, at Fayetteville Police Department, Springdale Police Department, Central EMS, who is our EMS provider, and Arkansas State Police. The University of Arkansas receives the landline calls that come in to their facility from properties on campus. All the wireless calls in that jurisdiction are still answered by Fayetteville. The way we broke our 911 system up in Washington County many years ago, when we integrated wireless in, was the Sheriff's Office takes all the landline calls in the small towns and unincorporated county. Central EMS takes all the wireless calls from those jurisdictions. Fayetteville and Springdale, respectively, take all their landline and their wireless calls in their jurisdiction. We obviously have redundancy built in so that if one center gets more calls than their system can manage at that moment in time, those calls roll over to predetermined locations, and those centers work very closely together, so they're very used to when one gets barraged with calls. This can happen on Interstate 49 and other places. The other centers are ready and equipped to take their extra calls. We currently have Vesta Palace, which is a product that we've gotten from AT&T, who's been our #1 partner for many, many years. And we're in the process right now of upgrading to the same system that Mike mentioned just a moment ago from Airbus. And I want to say that it's very costly for our county. I know the Blue Ribbon Committee is looking at funding as one of the issues. I will say that we expect this cost to run us around $800,000. So one of the things that we have to do, one of the things we want you to realize is large counties are affected the same as small counties, the same as medium counties. We're a very diverse state. We have different needs. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the 911 system has to be robust. The callers all respect the same level of care and provision for help anywhere they are in Arkansas. And whether you have 100 full-time dispatchers, you have 10, the callers still expect the same thing. So I know y'all have a lot of work cut out to try to decide how best to help all the counties and all the cities and the PSAPs in the state. We integrate GIS into our 911 system. That's been very important for us. I remember when I started going to the advisory board meetings in 1998 when I was asked by the county judge at that time to serve. Mapping was new, GIS was new, and now Shelby here can tell us that we're probably as advanced in the state as a county can be, and we take our GIS very seriously because those address points, the information that we utilize with 911 is critical to the responders being able to make a very timely response to where the caller is. So one thing I want to make certain is that as you move forward, keep GIS as important part of where we go with 911 because it's critical to the accuracy and ability to get to those addresses and those calls in a very timely fashion. I really won't go into the training because that's thankfully handled by our PSAPs and those PSAP administrators and each of the dispatch centers that I mentioned a moment ago, Fayetteville, Springdale, Central EMS, the Sheriff's Office. They take care of hiring their employees who are dispatchers as well as call takers. In our county, the county is responsible for 911, but we've partnered with those jurisdictions all these years, and they maintain the centers in their facility. I know Chief Tabor with Fayetteville Police is here. Thankfully, his center is available to us. I know it's a burden on both the dispatchers to take the calls and the call takers to do the radio traffic, but it's something that we've partnered on for many years. And I can say that if we didn't have those partnerships, I would not want this job. It would be too much of a headache, but we've got good managers that take care of hiring those people that you asked about a moment ago, keeping them retained. If you have questions related to how any of our centers retain their dispatchers, train their dispatchers, we've got some of those folks here, and I know they'd be glad to answer your questions, but we wanted to be very deliberate and short so that those people that can go on the tour and see Springdale Center, we want you to do that. I'll be glad to field any questions that you may have regarding how we do things in Washington County.
Anyone have any questions? Representative Douglas?
Do you have the capability when a call comes in through the GIS for it to automatically trigger the appropriate dispatch center that's closest to the event?
What I mentioned earlier is the way that we utilize routing in our county is any wireless call outside of Fayetteville and Springdale goes to Central EMS. And the reason that we do that, that's probability is greater that they're going to be the agency that dispatches the correct responder. For instance, City of Farmington joins Fayetteville. Central EMS takes the wireless calls that come from Farmington because Central EMS dispatches Farmington Fire Department. The Sheriff's Office takes those landline calls because the Sheriff's Office dispatches Farmington Police Department. So we've got it set up so that in Fayetteville, they dispatch their own responders. So we want that call to quickly route to them and straight to their responder.
So you're looking at those efficiencies within
Yes,
the
ma'am.
center of getting
Yes.
it to either the closest or the one that has that jurisdiction.
That's correct. Yes,
Thank you.
yes, ma'am.
Any other questions of Mr. Luther?
When you Mr. Luther, hi, thank you for your testimony. Realizing that Washington County, Denton County are larger counties, of course, serving larger population. And I know how many emergency management directors do we have in the audience? Yeah, okay. So you have a variation of smaller counties, and so I want to go back to your funding. Could you just talk about the structure of your funding, how that's collected, and talk about, and I know 800,000 is what you had said to upgrade your system. I know in speaking with mine, it's around 250,000. But could you talk about the variations and talk about what those requirements will be and the years that those are going to hit as to when you're going to have to spend that money, and if you have knowledge about the rural counties, if you can share that too.
Basically, what Mike described earlier, the 5% fee, we're an exact mirror to them. We at the county receive the landline fees off the telephone bills. The wireless funds that we get back go directly to our PSAPs. Those funds are collected off the wireless devices that people 911, and the ETS board accepts those revenues and then disperses that to the appropriate PSAPs. We have seen since I've been with the county, like I said, I started with the advisory board in 98, I went full-time with the county in 2000, and obviously in that time we've seen quite a swing from our landline revenues decreasing and our wireless revenues increasing. The wireless revenues, as I said, they'll go to the ETS board and then are dispersed out. So we've lost revenue, landline in Washington County, which we use in our office to maintain the equipment in those offices that I mentioned, those centers. Obviously that's down. Hopefully, this group can recommend that the legislature look at the wireless fees that are collected, that go to the ETS board, that are dispersed to PSAPs, and revisit the formula that's used and how that money is divided between equipment and maintenance and operations. When I started, it was roughly, and please don't quote me on this, but the ETS board had a formula of about 48.5% for equipment maintenance and 48% for operations, be it payroll for personnel, and a small percentage for the administrative fee. A few years ago, that was changed to 15% for equipment and maintenance. I believe 85%, don't make me lie to you again, I'm not doing that real quick here, but basically a larger percentage for operations. And what we're seeing is the dollars that we used to across the state utilize to replace equipment, to keep the core of our 911 systems in good shape, to do those updates as they were needed every 5 years or so, we've seen that fund go to nearly nothing. And so that's going to make it incumbent on the local jurisdiction to pay out of their own general fund dollars to replace their 911 system. I mentioned ours is going to run about $800,000. We've got some remaining dollars with the ETS board. We're going to commit to that. We're taking dollars out of our 911 fund at the county to commit to that, and then we're going to be on a 5-year payout for the remainder.
And those will just come out of your general revenue fund out of your county operations?
No, ma'am, that'll come out of the 911 fund.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in other counties, it's going to have to come out of their county general revenue. Is that correct? I see.
That could be correct.
It'll come out of county general revenue. Okay. And if it's not, if you haven't been saving for it, which I know Stone County has, but if you haven't been saving for it, that's going to cause a big problem.
Yes, ma'am, I believe it would.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
John, could you talk about the complexity of the issue with wireless calls that originate in neighboring jurisdictions like Oklahoma?
Yeah, I'll be glad to. One of the things that we've learned over the years is that a cell phone is nothing other than a wireless two-way radio. You can't tell it which tower to talk to. You can try. If you're in an area where there are more than one tower, the phone's going to try to affiliate with the one, I believe, closest in proximity. Some of the complications that you see is that tower is busy, or the capacity is not there. There are too many people already on that site. It may affiliate with another tower. One thing that we know is radio waves don't see jurisdictional boundaries. So in the case of Southwest Washington County, we have times where callers call 911 from within our county. There's not a tower near this local community, and the call is picked up on a tower in Oklahoma. other than placing a site in the area for our callers there to affiliate with, I don't think you can avoid that. What you have to have is partnerships with the states around you or the communities around you to understand when that call comes in, how to get it to the right location. And that's something that Mr. Harrison in the back with Central EMS, who takes responsibility for that area, has worked with Oklahoma to do. And so, again, your partnerships aren't always just county over, they may be the next state. But with technology like that, it's very hard to get that routing where you want it. It goes to where it's able to go. So, does that answer your question, Shelby? And let me say, the caller doesn't always understand that. They don't know why Oklahoma answered their phone call.
Representative Douglas, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you're telling me that there is not a GPS location that comes in with that cell phone number?
Well,
Or I was reading that capability is either coming or
we have phase 2 technology in our county. Yes, ma'am, we have that. So what happens when that call is placed, the call affiliates with a specific tower. The call also, or the phone the caller is using, also sends out coordinates or triangulates through other networks where it actually is. And yes, ma'am, we do have that, and we use that on a daily basis. We depend very heavily on that.
okay.
Yes.
So you're able to figure out where they are. They just don't understand why it went through Oklahoma.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Perfect.
I gotcha. Thank you.
Senator Irwin has an announcement. Real quick.
I just want to recognize that we have Supreme Court Justice Courtney Goodson with us. So thank you for being here.
Judge Lincoln, you have a question?
Can you address how you prepare your units for when there are going to be large events in areas, football games and things like that?
We have 80,000 people in one building. Yeah. Trial by fire, I think, is a simple way to go about that. No, all of our centers are very diligent about training. They realize the importance of competent and skilled dispatchers. It's not uncommon for us to have incidents that involve multiple centers. And I have to say that thanks to, I mentioned Chief Tabor, I know Sheriff Helder and many others, Judge Edwards, we've had an attitude within our county for the years that I've been here that invokes cooperation. None of us can do this alone. And what we realize is, like the responders in the field have worked together. 2 police departments from 2 different cities, the county, dispatch centers are the same way. They recognize that if one center is overwhelmed, they're going to have to take calls from that center at another location, and they're prepared to do that. We have monthly PSAP manager meetings where our public safety incident point managers or dispatch center managers get together on a monthly basis, sit down, have lunch, communicate needs and wants and things, problems that they face in their centers. I'm real proud that our folks do that, and I think it's just fostered that cooperative partnership. And so we look at our system in this county as a single system with a lot of parts and pieces. And we realize that one can't do it without the other. And so I think just somewhat by default, but also by proactive partnerships.
Well, I don't mean to belabor the point, but if you have an extra home football game this year than over last year, that's going to increase the cost of your operation of your units by, I'm assuming, more dispatchers on call. Or
It will. We have dispatchers both, I think, backfilling the centers, and then we also have dispatchers that actually are at the stadium in the command area where they're working at the ball game. So there's no question that's an increase in cost, yes.
So representing my point to the committee, it may behoove us to look at certain areas that have events that create more issues than the other areas that don't have that influx. And you have more home football games, you have more expense, and I've never thought of that until I was sitting here listening to him. But sometimes we overlook those situations and don't realize that from year to year that cost could fluctuate because of an additional home football game?
You're correct, that's a good question. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you, Mr. Luther. I want to commend y'all on working together. That's what we've all got to do to make this work for our citizens and keep everybody safe. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Now, Director of Procurement, Ms. Camber Thompson.
Good morning. Thank you for asking me to come to talk about the procurement process. I know there's been some interest possibly in doing a statewide contract for the counties for 911 systems. So I just kind of wanted to go over a few things that probably need to be discussed and thought about in order to start a process that does move forward. So the first step is definitely to identify the need, and I believe that we've done that now. So we need to move on to step 2, which is really the most vital step in any procurement process, which is developing the specifications and the requirements that would need to be in place for the 911 system. And that's really a time-consuming part of the procurement process. It's probably the most time-consuming part. Because in order to have a successful project, you have to make sure you have clear, concise, and specific specifications and requirements. And so generally what agencies will do is they will put a team together that will develop the specifications. And this team can be people from that particular agency. They may also bring in others from other agencies. And they may bring in some outside folks. Maybe in this instance, certainly some folks from the counties, maybe ADAM, ACIC, DIS, GIS office, and others that would be able to help put those specifications and requirements together. And really the things that you need to think about when you're looking at specifications is, what does the product need to do? What is it going to be required to handle? What implementation is going to be necessary? What type of training are you going to need once someone purchases a system? What type of transition plan will you need from the current system to a new system? And any potential upgrades of technology that may come forward through the lifespan of this particular product. And I just want to stop here, and does anyone have any questions thus far just about specification development?
I'm so sorry to ask this question.
Come to Representative Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've got several states that are ahead of us. So how do we learn from them and not have to recreate the wheel and have inefficiencies due to not using the information that's already out there?
Absolutely. That is a wonderful place to start, is certainly talking to some of these other states that have done this and maybe are ahead of Arkansas. So the team that's put together to review the specifications and develop those, it might be good for them to go to that state, sit down with their operations folks and get some lessons learned. You know, good points, bad points. That's absolutely a fantastic place to start, because we certainly don't want to recreate the wheel if someone else has already done it and it would work for us.
Proceed.
All right. Another thing that would need to be discussed is how you potentially want to award a contract. I know there may have been discussions of having a multiple award or a single award, so that's certainly something that would be discussed when maybe you meet with other states, you do some research, and determine what would be in the best interest for Arkansas and the citizens of the state. And once that's done, that's when my office would come into play. When you have your specifications developed, one of my staff would be assigned to work on that bid and would help put that into our templates that we have and would help with some evaluation criteria. I would assume this would probably be done as a request for proposal. I'm sure that we want to evaluate the systems that are out there and the vendors that are available to provide that to us. And that process, generally, if we come together with a really good specification, it shouldn't take more than maybe 3 weeks to get a bid document out on the street once it comes to our office, so it's pretty quick. And then what we'll do is we'll move into just kind of I consider the fun procurement process. We would have a vendor Q&A period where generally we'll release the RFP and it'll be out for about 2 weeks to allow any potential vendors to ask questions. Maybe they have some questions around the requirements or the bid process, we allow them to submit those and we will answer them. And generally we'll get our answers out within about a week. And then we'll issue any addendums. Maybe out of that Q&A we need to change some requirements, or there's something that we notice that needs to be updated, we may issue an addendum. And then generally within 30 to 45 days of a solicitation being issued, we'll open that solicitation, and that'll be done by State Procurement Office, and we'll review those for mandatory requirements, anything that they had to submit to make sure that they are a valid vendor that can go through to the evaluation committee. And once we do that, this is where the fun part comes in for those people that get to evaluate the proposals. And generally that's going to be a group of subject matter experts, 3 people, 5 people, 7. It just depends on the size and complexity of the project. So that really is something that we can discuss and determine what the best number would be. And then we'll do a training for those evaluation committee members just to go over the points of how to evaluate a proposal, what the general steps are. And then that leaves the evaluation committee to do their individual evaluations of those proposals. So they'll read each proposal. They will score them based on criteria that are written into the bid document. And then once that they have individually scored all of those, they'll meet together. This can be done on a conference call because people may be across the state, and they'll have a consensus meeting. And this meeting allows each individual to go through their scores, the good points, the bad points of each of the proposals. And if they have any questions, maybe something wasn't clear in the proposal and maybe they couldn't find it, but someone else did, it gives them an opportunity to go back and read that and then maybe change a score if they had a 0 because they weren't sure where the answer was. And then once that happens, OSP kind of comes back into the equation, and you will have an evaluation committee chair that will average all of the scores of the committee members, and then we will get those average scores back, and we will then open pricing. And we'll calculate points for pricing just like you do for your technical evaluation, and that will be set out in the bid as well. And then we'll have a ranking of vendors. Now, depending on how you determine you want to award that, if it's 1 vendor, if it's 2 vendors, whatever that ends up being, if it's 1, you would go with the highest ranked vendor. And then if there were any points, maybe during the evaluation you saw some things that you wanted to discuss with the vendor or negotiate, or possibly pricing, maybe we want to try and negotiate a better price, a lower price. That is something that we would do prior to what we call an anticipation to award. And that's something that we have to develop a negotiation document, and you'd work with my office and we develop that and put together any points that we want to negotiate. And then we would go out and negotiate with that vendor. Certainly we'd want someone on the committee to help negotiate that with OSP as a subject matter expert. And then once we're done negotiating, we're ready to put it on anticipation to award. And basically that's a 14-day time frame that opens up the opportunity for other bidders that are not receiving the award to protest. And once that 14-day period is up, we're ready to award a contract and allow counties to start purchasing off of that contract. And one other thing you may want to do during evaluation is oral presentations, because this is certainly a very complex and major project for the state. You may want to have vendors come in that have submitted proposals and maybe demonstrate a system, give you more information about the system, and that can be part of the evaluation, and you can score that as well. And certainly on something this large, that is generally something you'd want to do.
If you got some remarks, go ahead and you may answer them.
Okay. I just really think that this might save our counties some money by doing it this way. And granted, it's going to take a lot of work, and I'm up to it, but I would hope the committee would like to see this maybe move on and see if we could save the county some monies like this. Second is, ma'am.
And I guess my questions are, to the committee itself, and then also maybe directed to you also, some of the later questions. But, at first I want to make sure that, are we in agreement that, that the information that you need to make a decision, we received all that information? And if not, do we have a process in place to make sure that we have those questions, or place those questions can be stored so they can be answered in the future? Second, I think, it's time that we establish a firm timeline on when we want to have something ready to present, and I think we've got to tie in what the local level buy-in, or what we're going to set as a threshold for local level buy-in, because I think all of us can agree that 911 is a little bit political in the state, and that's just the nature of how it was created on that, county by county basis. In essence, it's like it's a city that grew too fast, and we didn't have the proper, plans in place, and now we're overcrowded, and we're trying to figure out how to manage traffic, and essentially that's where we are. I see it with the 911 system. We have cities and towns and counties that are looking to build Cadillacs, while we've got other folks just trying to buy the Pinto, and I think, there's going to have to be some parity created, because again, I think the fundamental thing that we're wanting to do is make sure that everybody has protection in each county, regardless of population or wealth or whatever it may be. And so I guess that's, I want to make sure we have questions answered. I want to make sure that we establish a timeline. It doesn't have to be this meeting, but I think it should be in the next short bit. And we make sure that we have that county level, because of the politics that are obviously involved with something like this.
That is correct, Senator Dismayne. This was just kind of something that we had thought of, to have open the conversation and see if it would save our county some money. And
I got one, sorry.
Okay.
And I guess my other comment would be is, I think, from each presenter that we've had as this process has went along, there's always the question of funding. And what and really what the question is what is the funding level going to be? Where's it going to come from? And then what are we going to do between landlines and mobile phones and all that good fun stuff? We've taken some steps here in the past, but it's going to be hard. That's the other decision I think this committee is going to have to make, is what does that funding level look like? Because we can have all the procurements in the world, but if we don't have the resources to fund them, then there's no way to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything? Mr. Maxwell, you have a question?
Not so much a question, an offer. I'll be happy to reach out to the county judges to ascertain if they're interested in doing this procedure or procurement process. If the judges are interested in it, we can start to take the lead in putting a team together to do the work with purchasing, and be happy to do that.
That would be great. Thank you.
Also, on the senator's remarks, I think as the Blue Ribbon Committee really has, at some point, quickly, we need to get the telecommunications companies in and start to have conversations with them about pricing and where their levels of comfort are, where ours are, and really start to work through that process so that when we get into passing legislation, it might go a little smoother. Just a recommendation.
Excellent one, sir. Thank you. Representative Douglas, you have a question?
I was just noticing that there are some states around us that are moving to a centralized 911 director, and then maybe 911 directors under the community or your Department of Emergency Management at each county level. Do we have a platform for making decisions countywide, statewide like that, or is that something that is within the scope of our committee to discover whether that's needed?
Mr. Maxwell, you have
There is not a platform statewide, and I think it's within the scope of the committee, and I think that one of the things the committee has to look at and make a decision on is, should there be an agency responsible, and then if the decision is yes, then picking which agency should be tagged. And I'm finding out that we have to be real careful with the legislation, because 911 centers seem to get sued a lot, and I've gotten pulled into a lawsuit simply because my name's on a document for grant purposes as being the statewide 911 coordinator, So, we've really got to look closely at that so that the state doesn't get involved in a lot of lawsuits going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Judge?
When it comes to funding, I'd like to remind us that in the onset of 911, it was supposed that the funding would come through the communication network, otherwise known as landlines, and that worked for many years. So what has changed? The communication has changed. So I think we need to remember that that's where the funding needs to come, is through the communication network. You're going to be overrun by how many calls you were today or that are cell phone related. Just want to remind the committee, and I know that we've been reminded this before, but whereas you used to receive one call from a landline for an incident, you're now receiving no telling how many calls for one incident because of cell phones, which overload their system. So I think we need to be bold in approaching the funding needs to come through the communication network, and let's take the burden off the counties and off the cities, and let's not put that burden on the state either. Let's put it on the communication networks where the system originally began with. That's what's changed, the communication network, not whether or not it should fund 911. And I don't know if that made sense, but it made sense to me.
Yeah. And I have a question, I guess, along that line is, I think in the presentation from Benton County, the capability of being able to send a 911 text.
Yes.
So my question would be then, I guess it's just there's no additional fee for that text, but I'm trying to understand what the cost of response to a text versus a cost of a response to a phone call would be, or is there a difference? I mean, I don't know. I think those are things we kind of need to explore as to how we respond to that. I'm not sure if the Benton County, if you want to answer that question or not, but I'm kind of interested in seeing that, because as technology progresses, it could be a different, clearly it's a different skill set. 13-year-old could probably do it better than most of us, but
You're absolutely right.
so I have a question about that, and then a lot of our systems, I guess, from a statewide procurement. So go ahead and answer my question first, and then I'll move to the second.
Okay. In Benton County, we use the TTY/TDD interface, and that's it's our telecommunications device interface on our 911 system. Whenever somebody sends a text to 911 and they're connected to a tower within our county, it will be routed through their carrier back to us through that interface. So the interface that my dispatchers are using, they've been using for many years. So there's not much new technology to learn at this point. There are other solutions. There's what's called a transitional text to 911 solution, and that's where we would have a web browser or something like that, another window open on our computer monitor to be able to interact with those callers via text. There's an associated cost with that. We chose to go the first route that I mentioned. One, due to cost, and two, due to the reduced amount of training that it would take. Now, all they have to do, we have pre-canned messages when somebody texts into 911. We have a lot of standard questions that we will ask each and every time. They can just single or double click on that, and it types it off for them. It saves a lot of time in that aspect. The third option for text to 911 is next generation 911. Whenever we get there, it'll be a direct interface between the carrier and us. There will be no go-between or anything of that nature. But we won't get to that point until we move into the world of NG911.
Okay, thank you. And I know we're about to lose people, but I think it'd be helpful, like looking at a statewide system and procurement process. Every county is at a different stage. So how you're going to get one vendor that's going to meet all those different areas of where people are, I think it's going to be tough. So is there a way we can get a map, not just information from the county judges to see if it's something they're interested in, but a map to see where they're at in each stage and what level of capability they have. You got to be able to have that before you even think about the statewide procurement process.
I'm not sure we can come up with a map. We'll look at it. Since there is no agency that's responsible, it took us a year or better, and I'm still not comfortable with the numbers to just find out how many PSAPs are out there. And so that's going to be difficult to do. We'll look at it. And the other thing on purchasing, while I have the microphone, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but on Next Generation 911, there is not a FCC standard set yet for next gen equipment. For land mobile radios, there's P25 compliant. We know that they'll work together. I don't think we're to that point on next gen, but that's something that we've got to encourage and work toward. I will say that everyone in the state is on up to phase 2, so we know that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning. Representative Sue Scott here. Thank you all for coming today. We're so proud of Northwest Arkansas. My question is, can you tell me if a text 911 takes precedence over a regular called 911? Is there any consideration that you would take the call over the text, or how do you decide which call or which text is taken? And what is the time frame for a text to go through? Let's say all conditions are go. Does the call go through faster, or does the text?
The call is certainly more conducive to caller interrogation, is what we call it in Benton County. Texting, by virtue of having to type out your message, it takes longer. We can't get that immediate verbal response from them. We're waiting for them to see, oh, I have another text. I need to send a response to that. It's also, well, to address the first part of your question, neither take precedence. If that dispatcher receives a text and 911 call, they are on that call. They're not going to push that to the side when the phone rings. They are dedicated to that call. And we decided that from the very beginning. We don't want to put them on any lower scale of importance, because it could be something very important that they're texting. And one thing that I wanted to mention earlier was the fact that since we've had text 911 in Benton County, there hasn't been this crazy influx of messages that we've received. Several have just said test on it. A lot of people want to see if it actually works. The thing that's really going to help us is the deaf and hearing impaired community. No longer are they going to have to pay for a third-party service, whether it be a facilitator or anything like that. They can just pick up their cell phone and they can get a hold of 911. So it's really making things a lot better for them. And I'm happy to say that we were one of the first in Arkansas to be able to offer that.
Thank you.
You have questions, sir?
Every time I come to a ball game, I get in trouble for not texting my wife or calling my wife. And even though I try, everyone else at the stadium is trying to do the same thing, sending pictures and that sort of thing. Is there any precedence put on 911 phone calls or text messages to these cell phone towers versus looking where our seats are here to fix it?
At this time, I don't believe so. Now, I can't really speak to that, as that's a carrier issue, and that's on an individual basis, whether it be Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile. That's up to them. Once it comes to us, as I said earlier, there's no precedence, but since it's so new in this state, that would be a great question to ask all of them.
I just mean, even phone calls, it's nearly impossible to make a phone call at a ball game anymore because the towers are so overloaded.
That's true. I will say that a text message is just a little bit of data. A A lot of times you'll find we don't necessarily have cell service, you can't make a phone call, but that message will go through because it's such a small amount of data. So in some ways it could help. You might be able to get that text message out and not voice call, you get all circuits are busy. You'll be able to get that text out more often than not. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Seeing no more questions, thank you very much for the welcome information. Next on this will be Tommy Real with the update on the panic button.
All the handouts will be on the website. You can receive one. This is one of those.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, members of the committee, members of the legislature. I'm here today on behalf of Mr. Ted Mullinex with Mullinex and Associates. Couldn't make it, and so I'm here to give you an update on Smart 911 and the panic button. Let me say thank you, first of all, for this opportunity. We are excited to provide y'all a report on what's happening with the new panic button for schools and a brief update on the statewide Smart 911 system. As you know, 2 years ago, the legislature passed a law to implement Smart 911 in Arkansas. And as you've already seen, it's saved many lives here in the state already. And with Smart 911 by Ray Mobile Systems, we're going to be able to offer the panic button in schools. And what that's going to be able to do, we feel like that it's just going to better protect our schools, our children, our administrators, and those in the school system. I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you for the leadership and commitment of the governor's office and the legislature. This Tuesday, coming Tuesday at 10 a.m. in the Capitol Rotunda, the governor is going to hold a press conference about the panic button and its implementation and kind of where we're headed with it. We've hired Ray Mobile Systems has hired someone on the ground in Arkansas by the name of Mr. J.P. French. Mr. French has already reached out to our schools. He's worked very closely along with Mullinex and Associates and Ray with Commissioner Key at ADE, Mr. Maxwell, Ms. Tina Owens with ADEM. We've also worked closely with our PSAPs to make sure that this is implemented, because this has to be a team effort. Everybody has to be on board for this. So I'm going to go to the second page of your handout and kind of give you a timeline of what's happened. As you know, on April 2nd, notification of House Bill 1653, the 2015 School Safety Act, which is Act 950, passed. And after the session in June, funding was secured through the Arkansas Department of Education. In July, a contract was signed, and as soon as that contract was signed, the team at Mullinex and Associates and Ray met with Mr. French, the AAEA, and with the commissioner and members of his staff at AAE to see how they wanted to implement and get this out to the schools. Commissioner Key sent out a commissioner's notice, got with the schools, and then we began sending them information on training. As far as training so far, we have documentation in all the school districts' hands of what we need to get this implemented. This past Friday, we held a webinar for all the school districts so that they could actually be online and ask questions and get answers on questions they might have had, but also be able to look at this online. Mr. Maxwell, along with his staff, got out information to the PSAPs that we would be getting them information to them, and they also have training online. The first of their training was put up in June. The second part, which was an hour and 17 minutes, it's online for the PSAPs to look at any time because we know they have very hectic and busy schedules. And then the second part of their training went online this past week, and it's 30 minutes so that they will be able to implement the panic button. So let me just say, as an associate for Mullinex and Associates and on behalf of the team, we're extremely excited. We know this is going to be a tall order to get the panic button implemented in all the schools in Arkansas by September 1st, but we are diligently trying to do that. And with that, I would take any questions of the committee.
Thank you for being here. In 2013, I passed the Safe School Initiative Act, which provides training for the schools for active shooter drills and those types of things, working with the Criminal Justice Institute. And I know that Cheryl May is going to be there at the press conference. So my question is, are y'all integrating this panic button training with those trainings that are happening through the Safe School Initiative Act? I would assume that you are, but I would, if you could elaborate on that, I would think it would be important.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. We have met with the Criminal Justice Institute. We've been in talks with them. Obviously, one of the apps that the teachers and the administrators and public school employees will have on their phone is that there's an active shooter. And so, obviously we want them to be trained in not only what to do at the schools, but to be able to get in contact with their PSAPs. And I'm sorry I failed to mention, the sheriff's offices and all the public safety folks that we have in the state. But to answer your question, yes, we have.
And I appreciate that. I think that's great. And I really want to thank the Attorney General's office for providing a lot of the funding that helped for those active shooter training to happen for Criminal Justice Institute. So it's a great cooperation of a bunch of folks. So thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Representative De La Rosa.
I just want to say, as an educator, appreciate what Representative Baltz has done in bringing that legislation forward and what you all have done and coordinated. I know in classroom, I'm teaching on one side of the classroom, my panic button was right by the door. Or they might have changed that and said, well, here, use your telephone and call the office. The lines are busy. I mean, this is just going to revolutionize, I think, the security that educators feel about protecting the students. So I think this is exactly where we should have gone, and I appreciate the leadership that was shown in putting that together.
Thank you, Representative Douglas. And as you know, as an educator, it may not be just an active shooter. There may be a child that has a seizure, or they may have an allergic reaction to something that they ate in the lunchroom. And with the implication of Smart 911 first, that child's name and any allergic reactions that they might have will pop up, and you'll know that. So you'll be able to tell that 911 coordinator, this child, where you're at and what may or may not happen.
That's good.
Yeah.
I have a very basic question. I almost feel stupid for having to ask it, but I've been sitting here this whole time saying I have no idea what this means. Everybody keeps using the term PSAPs, like everybody knows what that is. I have no idea what that is, so if somebody could please define that for me, that would be tremendously helpful.
Public safety answering point.
Public safety answering point. Thank you. That was it.
No, that was a great question, and I know as Senator Chesterfield would say, we use acronyms loosely, and so we need to have definitions. But the PSAPs are much a part of this, as the school systems are, because these calls are going to these PSAPs from these public school employees, and so the PSAPs have worked very diligently at trying. I know we've talked about the schools and the training they have to do, but there's also training for our PSAPs and those that are taking those calls. And so I would like to say thank you to them as well for the work and the training that they are having to do to get these schools online.
Okay. Brianna, you have a question?
You mentioned the 911 training is available online, correct? I know we've got multiple PSAP managers in this room, and I myself, as a director, have not seen that training. Could you tell us where we can find that for our staff?
Sure. Well, obviously, you can reach out to Mr. J.P. French, who is employed by RAVE. The training is on the RAVE Mobile Systems website. And I know that there was information sent out from Mr. Maxwell's office and also by RAVE on how to get to that. And so you can go to the website, and then there's also information that's been mailed to the PSAPs in as far as in a informational form as a packet. So if a particular PSAP was not able to go online, they would have some information there in paper form that they could use as well.
Representative Scott, you have a question?
Thank you. I'll be loud enough, probably. Thank you, Commissioner Chair, or Commissioner Key, and thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm jet-lagged. I flew in last night at about 3:30 a.m. or this morning, so bear with me. This is very important to me because I have so many grandchildren in school. I want to know what the response has been from educators with this program. Are they excited about this? And also, through their schools, will you all let parents know of this program, or will each individual school let parents know of this program? Because I think it would give our parents a lot of peace to know about this program.
Sure, absolutely. And to answer your first question, I would say overwhelmingly public school employees, educators in Arkansas are excited because they're going to be able to protect those children that they love and that they interact with every day. So yes. I think the second part of your question was, will this be out to the public? And it will. We wanted to make sure that the governor was going to hold his press conference on Tuesday. Obviously, there'll be news people there attending that, I'm sure. And then RAVE is going to be responsible for getting information out to the public as well, because we need buy-in from those parents to make sure that their children's information is uploaded into Smart 911 so that those educators know things that they may be allergic to, or symptoms that they may have, or a possible a disease that they may have, so that we can better prepare those emergency folks that are coming to that school to help out in that situation.
Follow-up, please.
Yes.
What help, if any, to our private pre-K situations? I mean, anything at all? Are they just on their own to come up with something, or are we going to try to include them eventually?
That would be up to you, Representative Scott, to the legislature. At this time, it's not. It's just to the 239 public schools in the state of Arkansas. But hopefully that we'll be able to deploy this to all schools so that they're all protected. Now, obviously, they could purchase this through RAVE Mobile Systems, and those calls would be handled at that local PSAP, just like the ones would at the school. So that is an option.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Any more questions for Mr. Wren? Wren?
Thank you. I just have one more question. How are we going to handle it if our PSAP's application goes down? How are we handling anything that comes through the Smart 911 and Smart Prepare then?
Well, I'm not trained in what would happen if a PSAP went down. That might be a better question for somebody that handles PSAP calls.
I mean, what if we have lost connection with the Smart 911? Our Smart 911 computer is not working or is not receiving the information.
Well,
not on the PSAP side. I mean, on the RAVE side.
On the RAVE side, I honestly couldn't answer that question. That would be a question, more technical question that we would have to get answered from the folks at RAVE. Do you know of any problems where the Smart 911 has gone down at any of the PSAPs?
I believe some PSAPs have had it go down. I think the managers would be better to experience that to talk about that directly.
Sure. No, I believe that that's absolutely a good question that we need to get RAVE to answer. And I know that JP, our representative here in Arkansas, can get that question answered for you. But I'll take that down and try to get you an answer. Thanks.
I've got his phone number, and he said to give it out to the committee or anybody else that needs it. If you have any problems at all, to let Mr. French know. His phone number is 870-219-2899. He said call, that's his personal cell phone. He said call him anytime. So, thank you all so much.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I appreciate you giving Mr. French's number out, obviously, so that they can get a hold of him. I also have a email for the PSAP directors that would like that, and they can send that email to him directly if they like. It's jfrench1@ravemobilesafety.com.
Phone number again, 870-219-2899. Yes.
Answer her question. As far as our PSAP, our 911 center, our smart 911 has went down a couple times. It's set up, whenever you get it set up, I have an alarm on my phone as soon as it goes off. And it's like any other computer, where you do a glitch or if you watch flicker, you just go in and reset it. You're notified.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Kathy Stalker, Fayetteville Police Department. Our Smart 911 went down 2 weeks ago on a Thursday. I tried calling two different texts from Smart 911. They didn't answer. My only alternative after that was to send an email that I got a reply that said somebody would respond in 2 days. Well, that was on Friday, so I didn't get a response till the following week. So it took another day. By Tuesday, to get back working again. Ray had applied some security onto their program, which caused our Smart 911 to quit working. And so that's our concern, was that kind of response, if we're going to tie a panic alarm to it.
Sure, understand. We will address those issues.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That will be relayed back to Ray.
And we did talk with Mr. French about that issue this week.
Okay, great. Okay, all handouts that have been handed out today will be on the website at the ArcLake website. The tour will be in front of the convention center. The buses will be out there at 10 to 1. The cars, the vans, whatever. The next meeting of the 911 will be August 26th and 27th in Blyville. Do we have any other issues? We've absorbed a lot of information today. Do we have any other questions or any other business for the committee? If seeing none, we'll be adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.